Hello, I am Tom Turcich. I'm 27 years old from Haddon Township, New Jersey. I'm 20 months into a walk around the world.
So Tom, how many days have you been on the road?
Man, I haven't looked at the exact days. It's a little over 600 now.
And about how many miles have you walked so far?
8,500 roughly.
How many countries have you been through?
13, I believe. So that would be through U.S., Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama, over to Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Chile, and I'm currently in Argentina, where I'll pick up.
So our daughter got a Fitbit for Christmas, and her goal is to reach at least 10,000 steps per day. How many steps do you log onto your Fitbit every day?
Roughly 40,000. So usually I'll average about 21 miles. Sometimes I go for 24 miles, but yeah, usually about 40,000 steps in a day.
So what is your most favorite place so far and why?
A lot of places, but the one that stands out most is probably Lake Atitlan in Guatemala. So it's a high altitude lake, 5,000 feet above sea level, in a caldera of a supervolcano, and surrounded by 3 other volcanoes. Just a really magical, beautiful place with towns around the lake. And then country would have to be Colombia. Colombia's incredible, very diverse, one of 17 super diverse countries in the world. So you have mountains, a beach, coffee country with these trees that look like they're something out of Dr. Seuss. Amazing coffee, super friendly people. Colombia was #1 place on where I'm going to return after the trip for sure.
So what was your least favorite place and why?
Least favorite place. Every place is different. Every place has different aspects. And Costa Rica is an amazing country. It's very well developed. Everything's super clean. The river, every river you pass through, there's no trash in it. I could be in the middle of the jungle and there'd be clean water to access, and 97% of the energy is green energy. All that being said, for walking, it was brutal because on either side of me is jungle and there's no wind coming across from the ocean. The humidity was 100%. The heat was brutal. When I was walking through there, I would wake up at 4 o'clock, get going by like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and would only be able to walk till 10 o'clock in the morning. After 10, the heat was so unbearable, like physically could not walk. There was a point, I bought these shoes from a city in northern Costa Rica, and my feet were swelling up so much that the shoes were just like I was like in a vice, and the road was so hot that the soles of my shoes melted off. So Costa Rica is an insanely great country. It's fantastic, but for walking, it was awful.
And can you describe your scariest moment so far?
Oh man, scariest moment. I would say probably just entering Mexico was the tensest overall because it was the first time walking as I was in a new country, and going from McAllen, Texas to Reynosa, Mexico is a really stark change. It's poorer. There's still some gang presence there from transporting drugs. It's dusty, and just being overwhelmed with all this new stimulus. They do things differently. There's more dogs on the street. I don't know the patterns of traffic as clearly. So for those like 4 days entering Mexico, it was really it was very stressful, and it took a little bit to just get my head wrapped around walking in this foreign land.
So if you're anything like me, you had a version of your walk mapped out in your head before you even took your first step. Has your experience been anything like you dreamed it would be?
Yeah, I didn't have too much detail in my mind as what I was expecting, what I wasn't expecting. It was more, I wasn't looking for anything. It was just to know the world. So I kind of go into every country anew and just what's here? What do you have to offer? Kind of thing. I mean, it's met every expectation I've had. I've had 20 months of adventure and met great people in Guatemala and El Salvador. Every country I've met people. I've made friends, which is a strange thing when you're 27 and you think, okay, I have my high school friends and college friends and childhood friends, and that's all the friends I'll ever have. And now I have my travel friends, the people I've met along the way and who are always traveling. But it's matched or exceeded every expectation. It's been great, and it's been a lot of fun to share it with people, and been very privileged and very lucky.
What are you discovering about yourself, or how is the walk changing you?
Yeah, the first 4 months when I was in the States were very cathartic. As I was walking, just going over, ruminating all the past memories, going over each memory from a different angle and turning it over again. And could I have done this differently? Could she have done something differently? Could my parents have done something differently? Or just looking at your memories from every different angle. And then by the time I got into Texas, I didn't have any problems. I felt free from any memories. I turned them over, and you just learn to accept kind of who you are and where you are. But I guess what I've learned most about myself is that I have a grit, and that I really want to do this. And I've been through some really hard areas where walking through desert for 250 kilometers of desert and walking 40 miles in a day to get through there in time to get water on the other side. And there's never a second, even in the really hard times, I'm covered in sweat and just exhausted, where I think it's time to go back. It's just no doubt. This is what I'm doing, and it confirmed this dream that I had since I've been 17.
Besides your friends and family, what do you miss the most about the United States?
What do I miss most about the United States? It's very developed country, and you don't realize how developed it is until you go south of the border. There are parts of other countries that have the infrastructure and the well-established companies, and every time you go to a gas station, there's going to be a Wawa or something, and you can get food, and it's a land of plenty. There's so much here, and you can get food everywhere. And I'd say just that kind of reliability, and I know the culture, and I know what to expect when I get into a new town. Whereas in other countries, and every time I'm changing countries, the rules change slightly. What's great for me is when gas stations have a little store, because you can rely on gas stations being every so far between each other, and then that means I can count on there being food every 150 miles, whatever it may be. And there are countries like Peru didn't have, their gas stations were just gas stations. So I couldn't count on, if someone said there's a gas station up ahead, that I could get food up ahead. And that consistency and that development too makes planning my walk a little easier on the day-to-day basis. That's, I'd say, probably on a day-to-day basis, what I miss most, practical things.
So what don't you miss about the United States?
Let's see, what don't I miss? Not much. I used to be not a big critic, but be harsher on the States. But America's an awesome place. America's a really, really great place. Not a lot.
I know you touched on this a little bit, you don't have a contract saying that you have to keep walking. So besides Red Bull instant coffee and sometimes Coca leaves, what keeps you walking?
It's just this is who I am. This is what I do. And when I'm on the road, there's not a lot of stimulus. When I'm here or I'm in a hotel or I'm in town, I can grab internet. I can get whatever food I want. But when I'm on the road, I'm in the middle of nowhere, and maybe I only have a limited amount of water. So there's also that it's required that I get another 40 miles just so I can get water. I can't sit around forever. And every day when I wake up, every day I wake up and what am I going to do today? Oh, I'm going to walk 8 hours. There's no, what are you going to do? It's get up and you walk, and that's it. It's just after 600 days, it's a pretty well ingrained habit. Yeah.
I understand you were delayed for a bit with a swollen ankle, and that you had problems with the knee, that you had the MCL repaired. Has the walk taken a large toll on you physically?
No, I'm stronger physically than I've been in a long time, especially my MCL tear. So I tore that when I was probably 14, playing indoor soccer, and that had always bothered me a little bit. When I would squat or when I would bend over, I'd get a little pop and the knee would feel weak. But since walking all these miles, I don't feel anything there. All the muscles around the MCL are stronger. And at the beginning, with the ankle and with the MCL, it was just getting used to walking. I was only doing 5 or 15 miles a day then, and it was getting my body up to snuff. But after 30 days, roughly, I could walk 20 miles and still feel pretty good the next day. But it took about a month of adjusting.
So at some point, you picked up a co-traveler.
Yes.
What's her name? What can you tell me about Savannah, when you got her, and how her presence has changed your experience?
Yes, Savannah is my dog. She's Australian Shepherd mix, probably just a mutt, but I adopted her in Austin, Texas after about 4 months of walking. And I never had went into this thinking I was going to get a dog, because the dog presents new challenges, basically just politically bringing them in from border to border, and needing to devote a little more time to getting her paperwork. And so I was never really on board with the dog at the beginning, but after a couple months walking in the States, sometimes you're laying in a tent in the middle of nowhere at night and you hear a twig crack and pop up full of adrenaline, and then you're up for 25 minutes sitting there listening to see if something's coming. And so you're sitting there looking, staring out in the dark. And after so many of these nights, I was just thinking, man, it would be really nice if I could sleep and had a dog and she would listen. I would sleep a lot better. And so I adopted her in Texas, and I got her 4 months old. I used to put her in the back of the cart and push her, try and train her a little bit every day. And after a month or so, she was walking 20 miles with me. And then a little bit later, she's walking 24, 25. And now sometimes we'll do 30 miles a day. And we'll get somewhere, I'll lay down, exhausted, and she will sprint in circles for like 5 minutes just to burn out that excess energy. And then she'll come over and pass out. So she's been great. She keeps up every step of the way. We're together every single minute of every day. So if I give her a look, if I snap in a certain way, she'll come right over to me. And she's been great companion and protector.
I understand she had a little bit of a health scare.
Yeah.
So what happened, and how is that playing out?
Yeah, she was healthy all the way through Central America, all the way through up until Peru. And in Peru, apparently there's a virus, a bacteria in some of these ticks. I can't recall the name, but so she had got bitten by this tick, even though I was using Frontline. If they attach for a little bit, they can get it. And so she had this infection for probably a month. And we left Peru, we're in Chile, and we were in the Atacama Desert, which is the driest desert in the world. And we're in the middle of nowhere, probably 60 miles from anything, and sitting in the shade. We stand up to get walking again. She kind of sneezes, and then something pops in her nose, and it was just like a faucet of blood, just no coagulation at all. And her platelets were basically non-existent. So there's nothing stopping the blood. And we're in the middle of the desert. And so I brought her back in the shade, tried to slow her heart rate down, and she stopped for a second, and then got her up to get walking again. And it started right up again. And so I'm grabbing her, and at this point I'm like covered in blood because it's coming out like nothing. So I went out into the road, onto the Pan American, and covered in blood, holding her, pointing at the dog. I was able to wave down one of these passing cars, and these people, amazingly, were nice enough to take me and Savannah in the back of the car. And I'm like, she is bleeding an insane amount, and I was terrified. She looked pale too, even though she has her coat and everything. She looked like, she knew in her eyes like something that's not good. And so they strapped on the cart on top of the car, and we drove an hour to the next town. There wasn't a vet there, and it's just a little town. And so I was able to get a room for the night, kind of clean her up and sneak her in there. The next day, I got a 6-hour taxi back to like the nearest city, Arica, which was in the north, and got to a vet, got her tested, and got the medicine. And another person in Airbnb had us, and after 2 days, she stopped bleeding, and now she's free of the infection and everything. But yeah, it was really, really scary and freaky, and yeah, she's better now. But man, yeah, that was scary. On Brevecto now, so hopefully it works a little better than Frontline.
So, do you find most people to be inherently good on your walk so far?
I'd say that's confirmed, definitely. If you think about just the sheer numbers of people I'm passing, if they weren't inherently good, if they didn't inherently want order, I would have been robbed 1,000 times by now.
And have you been robbed?
A guy tried to rob me in Panama City. Pretty nasty dude. It was my last day in Central America, and I just crossed the Bridge of the Americas over the Panama Canal into Panama City, and I knew it was a bad area. I'd walked by these guys earlier sitting on this sofa, and the dude was just polishing a piece of glass. So they looked like nasty guys. And I got by them. I knew it wasn't in a good area, so I kept walking. And I thought, but I was starving. I barely eat anything that day. I'd been walking for 3 hours already, and I thought I was out of kind of the worst of the kind of like the outskirts of the city. So I sat down outside of a little store, got some chocolate milk and some bread and stuff like that. I'm sitting by the street. I'm texting my dad. It was his birthday. I said, "Happy birthday." And then I felt something cold on my neck, and I look up, and there's this red-eyed, nasty skinned, long-haired guy. Man. I can't, just not saying anything. And I jump up, and he comes back, and then he starts yelling, "Shut up," in English. Shut up. I'm yelling at him, and I'm backing up, and I go into the shop, get behind the counter, and he's still holding this knife. He's holding the knife to my chest, and then something went off in his head, and he took off. And I went back out after him, and there's a crowd out there, and they pointed down this alleyway, and the cops were throwing another guy against the wall there, and my backpack was laying on the ground with my passport and my computer and Savannah's paperwork in there. And so it was a team job. The one guy pushed me in the shop, the other guy came and grabbed my backpack and then took off. But luckily nothing happened, and I got my passport back. If the cops got there super quick and got away. Yeah.
So how do American citizens compare to the citizens of the countries you've walked through so far?
I would say Americans are less willing to just start a conversation with a stranger, and I think they're less trusting of strangers. Maybe it's politeness because we have so many different cultures together, and you just kind of let everyone live their lives and go home at night and do their thing. But in a lot of other places, people will strike up conversations with me out of nowhere, or I've had many times I'm walking and a fisherman will finish his day and then he'll come up and walk with me for 40 minutes and just because there's someone to walk with, he's walking home too, so we may as well walk together. Whereas in the States, if that happened, you probably think, what is this creepy guy doing walking next to me? So that's been an adjustment, and it's changed my perspective too. I'm much more willing to start a conversation with someone, which has been a good thing.
So on this walk, you are an explorer, a traveler, a photographer, a storyteller, and a writer, and you've been writing for quite some time. Is that true?
Yeah, I've been trying to write for 4 or 5 years.
And in your opinion, what will it take for you to become the great writer you aspire to be?
A lot more time, a lot more writing. Yeah, it's a very difficult craft to master, to even get good at. And I've been writing about 4 years, 5 years, and I still feel like I'm just a terrible writer, which is a good thing because it makes me want to work harder and master the craft, I suppose. But I have a couple more years bought of free time walking, so I'll have some time to practice.
Well, just so you know, I've read all your blogs. I think they're awesome. And I read everything, so
yeah.
Well, you have written books, correct?
Written, yeah, sci-fi books, yeah. And I wrote a book about the first year of the walk as well. But it probably needs more editing and didn't get. I mean, I sent it out to literary agents, and it's notoriously hard to break through anonymously to get an agent. So the better plan to get an agent and to get something published is actually probably just to build my Instagram following, build a Facebook following, and then we're likely to get an offer. Yeah.
Okay, so like most people in the United States, we have distractions such as streaming music, video games, cell phones, social media to keep our minds occupied. But you don't have much of that at all. So how do you not get lost in your own head, in your own thoughts? Like, how do you handle that on your journey?
I listen to a lot of podcasts, so that gives me something to think about. At night I read, take photos during the day, try and write a little bit. But a lot of it is just habit. You get into the routine of walking, and kind of after a while you stop having problems because you've thought about all your problems so many times.
So while you were walking through the desert, you found yourself at a small restaurant that happened to be where your idol, Carl Busby, rested his feet 16 years prior. Your blog said you were in an emotional funk, and the owner of the restaurant, Clemente, showed you a letter that Busby wrote in the year 2000, offering words of encouragement to fellow walkers and bikers. At that moment, did you think that his letter was written just for you?
Yeah, it kind of felt like it. Yeah, I was the only other walker to pass through since then. And yeah, it's just, man, it's serendipity. I've had this conversation with my mother a couple times because for her, her goal in life has been to just get her house and set everything up neatly and just have everything so she knows exactly where she's going every day. Everything is set and in place and safe. But when you do that, you lose the opportunity for serendipity. And that's kind of what happens on the walk when I'm out there and I'm meeting random people and I'm stopping in random places. You leave yourself open to like these moments where, like it was such an incredible moment. I was drained. I'm in the desert. I'm exhausted. I was missing my family, and then coming to this restaurant, and Clemente was so friendly. And then opens this book of all these signatures of cyclists who had passed through, and then he shows me this other walker, and it's a note from Bushby saying, keep on pushing, kind of thing. And that was, I don't know, I kind of almost forgot about that. That's like one of the most spectacular moments of the walk. Yeah, that's incredible.
In your blog, Afternoon Tea, you talk about missing or not missing your family on your walk. Can you describe any homesickness you had at the beginning of your walk and how that has subsided, if it has?
I didn't actually have much homesickness. It's something I've been thinking about since I was 17. And it was more, before the walk, it was just anxiety to get going. And then once I got going, every day I was thinking, I'm living my dream. This is perfect. I'm out here. And no, I didn't really, me and my family have a strong bond and a good enough relationship that I know they'll be all right without me, and they know I'll be all right without them. And so, I can confide in them. I can call them if I need to. So I don't feel as if, I know they're with me, kind of thing, even if they're not around me all the time.
So we have a pet guinea pig named Dash. And for my kids' sake, I won't let them know that you actually ate a guinea pig for dinner one night.
Yeah, twice.
So besides eating what in America is considered a household pet, what is the strangest thing you have eaten on your walk?
The other thing that sticks out is frog legs in Alabama. They're kind of just like chicken wings, but saltier and fishier. Well, chicken wings are better.
And what does Savannah eat?
Dog food. You can get dog food everywhere. Even if you come into this little town with one shop, they'll have a huge bag of dog food. It's been surprisingly easy to actually get dog food everywhere, every town. Yeah.
And besides ayahuasca, what is the strangest thing you've drunk on your walk?
Man, strangest thing I've drunk on my walk. Ayahuasca was definitely number one. That was a pretty strange
Tell
thing.
us about it.
Yeah, so I was in, I'd stopped in Lima. I have a fraternity brother who's from Lima, so I had a base there for a month. And then I have a friend I met in Guatemala who's trained to be a shaman for ayahuasca in the jungles of Peru, in Iquitos, in the city. And so I flew from Lima to Iquitos to see him and to go out into the jungle and experience ayahuasca. And ayahuasca is like this spiritual drug that's people are starting to use it even for PTSD and as a treatment. And it's the nastiest tasting thing. You sit in the middle of the jungle in a maloka, which is like a shrine. You sit there at night in the dark, and the shaman sings these incantations, and is the nastiest tasting thing. It's like drinking vomit. Then after you throw up after an hour or so, and after that, you're gonna start to hallucinate, and your thoughts are very vivid. And yeah, it was an experience. It was an experience. I didn't go there to try and solve any problems or anything like that. It was just it was a really cool thing to do. I was in the jungles of Peru taking ayahuasca. It was pretty cool. But otherwise, man, I don't know. Strangest thing I've seen. Strangest thing I've drunk. I've had just like straight goat milk. That's probably the next closest thing. Guy walking around Colombia with a goat, and then I'll just milk the goat right there and give it to you.
I'm glad you told me he milked the goat.
Yeah, yeah.
He didn't drink it any other way.
Yeah.
I understand you surprised your parents for Christmas this year. Will you explain how
Yeah.
it played out?
Yeah, so that's why I'm here right now. And so I was in Peru. I was along the coast, and I was in the desert for months. All the coast of Peru is desert, and I'm sitting in this little shrine. Someone had died there, so there's a little shrine and some shade. Savannah's behind me in the shade, and I get a message from my cousin saying, "Do you want to come home for Christmas?" I said, "Of course, but I can't afford it." And so I said, "All right, let me ask the cousins if they want to chip in to fly you home." And then a little bit later, maybe a day later, so I got a great response, and all the cousins and aunts and uncles chipped in to buy me a ticket home. And the idea was to surprise my parents as a gift. And then it was 2 months of waiting and like every day, like, all right, only 60 more days until I go home. And then so I got to Western Argentina, and then Savannah and I flew from Western Argentina, left our cart there, flew from Western Argentina to Uruguay, where I have some cousins, stayed with them a few days, and then flew back on Christmas Eve. Got in to my aunt's house where we were having family party at about noon, and fell asleep. Didn't sleep at all in the red eye, and then woke up at 3 o'clock to my mom's voice right outside the door. And I grabbed Savannah, ran into the closet and hid, and then someone got her away. And then my sister came in a minute later, hugged her, and then she walked out with Savannah first, and I followed. And walked out with Savannah, kind of softened the blow. And the whole family's there, and I kind of hide around the corner. My dad goes over my sister goes over with Savannah to my dad, and my dad takes her and is surprisingly like rolling with her. It's like, "Oh, hey, hon." Turns to my mom, "Look who it is." And then my mom was just like uncomprehending. Sees the dog and just, is it Savannah's twin? Did not fit in with her reality, because I was in Argentina, and I had, that's where I told her it wasn't with family or anything like that, and then she turns, and I'm standing over there, and she looks at me, and then she started bawling her eyes out, and yeah, it's very, very. I have an amazing family for my cousins to fly me back, and thankfully I didn't. Yeah. Yeah. Thankfully I don't have any rules on the walk, so I'm allowed to come home if I feel like it.
So you seem to chat with your mom a lot on the walk. Is she like your go-to person when you need
a
kind voice?
Yeah, I try and speak to her see. Yeah, I try and speak to her probably every time I'm in Wi-Fi or something like that. Yeah, I can't call. It's the only time we can talk when I'm in Wi-Fi. So, and I'm usually in Wi-Fi maybe once a week or maybe once every 2 weeks. When I have the opportunity, I call her, and I know she appreciates it, and it's nice having a conversation with someone who's known you your entire life and not in a second language and trying to convey all the troubles of walking around the world. She's definitely the go-to, and she's been very supportive.
So when do you leave, and where are you headed next?
So going back this Sunday, so that's the 16th, and land in Uruguay. I'll be in Uruguay with my cousins just for a few days, and then I'll go back to where my card is, where we left off in San Miguel de Tucumán, which is western Argentina, and very hot right now, rainy, and I'll be walking through farmland to Uruguay. And when I get to Uruguay, Montevideo, that'll be the end point for South America. So it'll be from San Miguel de Tucumán, probably about a month and a half to Montevideo, and then from Montevideo, I will fly down to Ushuaia, which is the southern tip of Argentina, and take a boat to Antarctica for a few days, plant my feet on it, see what's up, and then fly back, and then it'll be over to Europe and continue over there.
Any idea when you're going to be back in New Jersey?
No, I might have to come back before Europe because my cart is kind of crumbling at this point. Everything's breaking just little by little, and it's covered in duct tape. And there's a lot of little pieces that have just worn. A lot of things like tent and clothes, everything is just slowly crumbling. So I might have to come back just for a little bit, restock, resupply, and then go over to Europe. So that would be the next time, which would be relatively soon, but I'm not sure yet. And then once I get to Europe, no plans on coming home then for another 3 years or so.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.